Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is an energy design expert, award-winning interior designer and Feng Shui practitioner, media personality, and author. She's the host of the popular podcast Home Energy Design, and Robin Openshaw recently named her as one of the 4 wise women she admires. Welcome to the show, Amanda Gates. Welcome.
Hey, it's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. We had a little bit of technical difficulties to start on my end. We're talking about Mercury retrograde and all that kind of fun stuff, so it made me feel a little bit better. But your work is all energy design in the home and things like that. Do you want to give people a little bit of a background on just what you do and how you got to doing the interesting work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I am an advanced Feng Shui practitioner. And so a lot of times when people hear that, they hear the word Feng Shui and, you know, they may have picked up a book here or there at some place or maybe met someone and they'll automatically think, oh, cool, you move furniture or you deal with clutter. And actually, this is a much more advanced level of Feng Shui. So I really take a look at a person's environment, and I am a floor plan reader. And so what I can do is look at somebody's floor plan and I can see the things that are showing up in their life. I can see, you know, that they're experiencing anxiety or possibly partnership issues, or they're struggling with finances, or they may be, I mean, it can be as fine-tuned as I can see that they're blood pressure or heart problems, respiratory issues, things like that, career issues. So what I can do is, you know, I do make things pretty because I am also a professionally trained interior designer, but I learned early on from my own experience after remodeling and gutting a home and making it pretty that there's so much more to it than just a pretty atmosphere. You can't, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. So if you make your environment pretty and shit is still going wrong, it's because it's showing up in your floor plan. So your environment matters. And so often we look to external things to make us feel good and to thrive optimal, whether that's in health, wealth, finances, relationships, things like that. And so rarely do people look at their home environments and even their office environments as a possible solution. And that's where I come in. I can come in, and that's why our slogan is designs that are energy aligned. Before we do anything that is pretty, before we start putting any decoration in, we first work on the energy and getting the environment right. Once that's right, then we can put in the pretty, and then you can start boosting and elevating your goals in life because your environment is supporting you.
Interesting. Well, this is exciting for me because I know so little about this, so I'm going to have to ask questions where I learn a lot. One thing that I remember reading a while ago was a book by Mark Devine. He's a Navy SEAL, and I think it's called The Unbeatable Mind. And he just talked about how you wake up in the morning and then you make your bed because you're setting how your day goes. And if you have clutter in your room, then unconsciously you're going to be thinking about all this clutter. You know, even though you're doing your task, if you see it in your peripheral, you're going to be thinking about that task that needs to be done. So I feel like your work kind of takes that idea and magnifies it, how you feel in the room, what's around you. You know, if you go into a messy room and you're trying to be focused and you've got maybe kids' toys everywhere like I do right now, my room that I'm currently in is like probably the polar opposite of a feng shui room, then your mind is actually picking up all this clutter so it doesn't flow. So do you want to speak about maybe some of the things that you do, or maybe something that someone can do within their own house to analyze what they're looking like? How do you go in and analyze the room? They can have a peek, and then they can maybe start moving things around or understand how to create an ideal flow environment.
Yeah, so what I always tell people who are new to this, one of the things that I always talk about it's a system that I put together called the top 5 disruptors. And so when you're looking at your floor plan or your home's layout, what you want to do is you want to take into consideration these top 5 disruptors, because these are the things that can wreak havoc on your environment and your life. So the first one is the front door. We want to pay attention to that. The second one is the overall shape of your house, because in Feng Shui, everything is quite literal. So we want to take a look at how that shape is. Number 3, we want to look at what's called a knife edge, and that's just the shape and sharpness of objects that are around you, whether that is a wall or a piece of furniture. Number 4, we want to look at bathrooms and their location, because bathrooms have a lot of drains in them, and so that can affect our energy system. And finally, there's this idea called command, and command takes place at your bed, desk, and stove. And the idea behind that is that it triggers fight or flee. So if you cannot see the door, your adrenals are fired up, and you're basically in this hyperactive, anxious state. It's evolution that you're going to get, attacked by a tiger. So we want to start with those 5 things and take a look at where they are and how they're being utilized in your own floor plan to see how the energy is showing up in your life.
Well, that's fascinating. Okay, so once we do those things, how do you, like, what would somebody do? Like, if I want to do this myself and I want to analyze it, can you give some tips on how somebody might be able to apply this and just kind of look and move some things around?
Absolutely. So what we'll do is we'll refer back to those top 5 disruptors. And so, like I said, the first one is your front door. So your front door represents your mouth of chi. So if you look at your own mouth, like let's say you get in a car accident or something and you have to have your mouth wired shut, you can't get proper nutrition. You're going to start to lose weight. It's hard for you to eat. You can't talk. You're going to suffer. That is essentially what your front door does if you don't use it. And so a lot of people don't actually use their front door. They come in through the back door, the side door, the garage door. They rarely use their front door. So because this is an area where all energy, new energy, comes to basically stimulate all the energy in areas of your life, if you're not using it, then you can it'll start to show up in your life as depletion. Things will become stuck. Things will become stagnant. And then in addition, if you're not using it and it's dilapidated, maybe the light bulbs are burnt out, the door is filthy, your plants are overgrown or dead, that's not very inviting. That's not very welcoming. And your front door not only represents all of this new vitality coming into your life and in your home, but it also represents how you think. It also represents, new opportunities that come to you. So if you stand out at your curb and you're looking at your front door going, shit, this looks terrible, those are the kind of opportunities that are going to be showing up in your life, bad ones. So we want to start there and take a look at how your front door looks. Number 2, if we look at the overall shape of your home, each area of your home represents a big area in your life. So it could be finances, partnerships, career, health. What we want to do is look at the overall shape of your house. And if you've got basically a chunk out of your house, or it's an odd shape, or if it's a difficult shape, that's going to affect how the energy shows up in your life and how it shows up and meanders throughout your home. So we always want to take a look at that. So most people have like a square box, a rectangle box. Most people have pretty basic homes, but if your home is an odd shape, or if it's got like a lot of indentations or stuff, pay attention to that. I always tell people to journal and write down things that keep showing up. Like, what is going on in your life that keeps showing up again and again? Because I guarantee you it's in your floor plan. Number 3, if we look at the concept of a knife edge, if you look at like where 2 walls come together, that could be an area, we call that sharp shooting chi or sharp shooting energy. So that would be really important if it's pointing at you. If you've got a sharp object while you're cooking, while you're sitting at a desk, an area that you spend a lot of time, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel fidgety, you're not going to be able to get work done, you're not going to be able to cook. It's going to heighten that fight or flight flee thing because you're in danger. If we look at the bathroom, the average bathroom has 4 drains in it. And where does the water go? It goes down. So that's where your energy is going. And so you have to look at our bodies as energetic systems. We have this energy Wi-Fi that's around us called the emotional body, and it's picking up on stuff before it hits our physical body. So in our homes, if we've got bathrooms like right outside of our bedroom, or sitting on a particular area that represents, like, say, wealth, that means that we're flushing our finances down the drain. Or maybe it sits on partnership and it's causing difficulties in our partnership. You got a lot of energy that's going down, so it creates an energy suck. So it just strains the area of your life. Or I guess we could put the pun in there and say it drains. And then finally, if we look at command, at your bed, desk, or stove, you always want to be able to see the door. I see this all the time where people want to put their desk up against a window because they want to look at the trees and the birds and all that. But if you've got the door behind you, subconsciously, your brain is going, danger, danger, danger. Somebody's going to come up behind you and stab you. Obviously, that's not going to happen in your house, but you can't change evolution. So that taxes your parasympathetic nervous system, that taxes your adrenals. And without you realizing it, that emotional body that we were just talking about, it has alarm systems and it's screaming danger. So now you're becoming heightened and you're becoming anxious, and it affects your work and productivity or your ability to cook or your ability to sleep. So those are 5 major areas that you want to pay attention to get you started in this concept of Feng Shui and energy.
Interesting. Okay. I learned some stuff there. The door behind me. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that it's really taking into account like how your mind works subconsciously. What I learned from NLP and things like that, when you're reading person, one of the first things you would do on a very primal basis is you're going to categorize whether you need to be afraid of this person and you need to protect yourself, or this person's a safe person. So that's why, they say the first introduction is super important, because if you kind of startle somebody, they instantly kind of go into that as like, ooh, this person is to be, got to watch that person because we don't know, what they're into or what they're about. So I guess for me, what I'm curious about is, I know that I live in Vancouver and have a friend that's a builder, and he's actually building a house for somebody from China right now. And it's massive in China. Feng Shui is, they won't go in certain, he says, like, some of them, like, they won't go in certain houses if it's built away. If they get a house commission, they have all of these floor plans. It's very, very different. They're very specific about it. So can you speak a little bit about, just in general, for people who don't know what Feng Shui is, a little bit about the history, where it comes from, the philosophy behind it, anything along those lines?
Yeah, so there's several different schools around Feng Shui. I practice what's known as VTB, which is, it's a big word, but it's more transcendental. And then there is the more westernized version, and then there's Compass, and then there's a lot of little offshoots like 9-Star Key and Pyramid. Excuse me. And so these different schools have different philosophies and how they do things. And I can't speak so much for the other schools because I've been doing my school, my BTB school, for over 20 years. But like, for example, Compass School is directional. So it's based on, you place your bed here because this is your favorable direction based on your birth date. We don't follow that in my school, simply because directional Feng Shui has its weaknesses. Because our philosophy is so big around command and putting you in an optimal location so that you're not triggering that fight or flight, based on your 9-Star Key, it may put you, based on your astrology, in a location that is not ideal. So, and that's really where Feng Shui originated. It's this whole idea of, they wanted to place kings and queens and people of royalty in optimal grave sites. And so they determined that they wanted them to be in a mountainside. They wanted them to be facing specific locations, and they wanted to create the optimal energy around this. That then transpired into this idea of, well, why not do this for the living? And so they started paying attention to environments and how the human body associates and builds relationships with the environments that are around us. And so our environment is a direct reflection of what's showing up in our life. So like I have a girlfriend right now where like her HVAC system broke, the tree in the backyard fell down, her roof collapsed, now her oven is broken. It's just one thing after another. And she's like, man, this is really shitty. And I'm like, but the thing is that your home is a direct reflection of you. So you have to pay attention to these things because it's speaking to you. She's literally going through a massive transition in her life and really coming into her own. And so she's tearing down old ways and really starting this new way of thinking. Her home is literally speaking to her this language. And so Feng Shui, it started about 4,000 years ago. Some will argue that it started 6,000 years ago. Who gives a flip? It was a long time ago. But it's really this idea of these sages and wise elders basically would pay attention to the layout of an environment and the design details that were within that environment and that go up in people's lives. And what they would do is this information was held so close to the chest that they would literally only share this information with monks and then send those monks up to the hills in Tibet. And so, you know, this sacred knowledge was carried on orally, and it was only in the heads of these monks. And so it was held very close to the chest because it was so esoteric and it was so transcendental that they were afraid that people would, you know, use it correctly, misunderstand it. And it's really highly regarded in China, but it's still pretty misunderstood here in the Western culture. Like, people still aren't really sure about it. They don't really know if this stuff is real. They're not really sure about this transcendental stuff because a lot of what I do, I can literally look at a home and say, oh, you are experiencing a bad relationship or possibly divorce. And I may tell someone, you know, we need to do this ceremony and place a mirror here. And it seems so illogical. But then all of a sudden everything gets repaired. And it's like there's this whole transcendental, we call it the shushar, of illogical, unreasonable, unexplainable events, but we're working with energy. And so it's like magic happens. So to me, Feng Shui, even though it's this very ancient practice, it's this very magical way of working with your environment and the energy within your environment to get unexplainable results that you probably couldn't achieve on your own.
All right. That was a fantastic definition.
Long definition.
No, it's really good. I'm glad you went into detail because what my mind is doing to try to wrap my head around this is that like everything to me is a reflection of my reality and my state of consciousness. Even when I go outside, the people that I meet, the experiences that I have, the animals that I see, everything is a reflection of me. And the home that you live in each and every day is really a direct reflection of you because you're spending most of your time there. So if you go into someone's house and it's cluttered and everything is, you know, broken down and dirty, and you know, they'll even say this about your car, right? So it's like, well, you know, where is this? Like, this is a reflection of your personality, you know? And so that makes perfect sense to me. And what I'm curious about, because you have a lot of really great articles on your blog. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because it goes far beyond just, you know, how you set up your space. It really is a mindset around Zen and peace and personal development. And one of the things I know that my listeners would be interested in is a lot of people ask me questions about meditation. And some people ask me a question about, you know, how do I set up a space? My answer always is just sit down somewhere and meditate. Now you can create a space. And what I think would be really valuable for people is if they do have a homework space where they either A, want to create an office where they can be functional. And this is something that, you know, I would like to do, and B, like a sacred space, because if you do create that space for meditation, for some sort of personal practice, number one, doing that daily personal practice is a very powerful thing to shift your life, to shift your perspective. And two, when you create a space that is specifically for it, you've got this like room. So if you dedicate one of your rooms in your house just to working out, you're going to know if you're using that room. It's always inviting you to that space that you've created to do that action. And so I'm curious if you can share a few tips on how somebody might create either a meditation space or a workspace in their home, if they're same or different.
Yeah, they're vastly different. So I'll start with meditation space. Even if you live in a very small apartment and can't devote like an entire room, not everybody has that luxury, but there's no reason why you can't create like a corner, in your home if there's a small little section. The great thing about setting up space for meditation, self-care, self-reflection, Zen, whatever you want it to be, and it's not always going to look the same, but the importance of creating an area that you do that with is that it becomes a portal. So it's like it becomes this sacred space that when you enter that area, even if it's literally like I'm here doing work and then I go right here and you just shift like 2 feet, it's still a mindset thing where you're shifting over to left brain, right brain. And so it becomes this mind shift. And so some of the best things that you can do is I always recommend like a meditation pillow, something that you can sit on, or a small chair that's low to the ground. Make it extremely comfortable. It's really great if you can incorporate plants around you. Plants are extremely healing. They're great for our energy system. And they're one of the best things in Feng Shui. They really boost just how we feel and our vibe and positivity around us. And if we have a lot of junk in that emotional energy system around us that I was talking about earlier, it can kind of start to look like Pigpen, where we just got all this bullshit kind of swirling around us. And so if you can go to this portal, this sacred little space, and it's got plants and it's got crystals and maybe some incense and Buddha and all these cool things, you're just going to be able to, it's just going to kind of absorb all of that. And plants are really great for getting rid of some of that ick. Setting up an altar is a great thing. I've got a lot of articles on the blog on what an altar is, stones to get you started in an altar, and how it can best benefit you, how to set one up. But an altar is nothing complicated. It's just simply a space where you set up things that are important to you. So it can be crystals. I love crystals, rose quartz, amethyst, selenite, citrine. Those are some great starter stones. But you were just mentioning like you're always paying attention when you're outside and paying attention to animals like that. Nature speaks to us, and a lot of divine wisdom comes to us through nature. And so it's imperative that when you are outside, you are paying attention. I am notorious. I have so much stuff around my house where I have found a special stick, or I have found a special rock, or feathers. I love feathers. It could be a special, however those communicate with you, those are sacred items that if they draw your attention or make you go, that's kind of special, that needs to come home with you. And that can be set up in that space. What you want to do is when you're creating that area, you want to surround yourself with the things that really are important to you, uplift you, and really help you get into that right brain state of mind, because that's what's going to help you get into that theta state of Zen and meditation. Or even if you just go to that space and consciously write in your journal, they call it conscious writing. You can even do something like that, but you have to have that space where you're kind of transformed. As far as your workspace goes, the most important thing is just to try to keep it as clutter-free as possible. You're absolutely right that because our environments are a direct reflection of us, if you do have a lot of shit and turmoil and paper and stuff all around you, science proven we can't think straight when we're surrounded by all that stuff, because it's cluttering our minds. So, I love the idea of making your bed, because that absolutely, all the things that you can eliminate brain fatigue with, do it. So you want to set up your office space to where you can see the door. You want to set it up in a way comfortable for you, have a comfortable chair. You always want to have a chair with a high back in it so that you're supported. That's a literal thing in Feng Shui, so that you're supported in all things that you do. You want to have a wall behind you. It's really important to have that, because then again, it's just additional strength and power behind you. Being able to be comfortable, and if you want to have a temporary or a altar, you can bring that into your office. I encourage a lot of my clients to do that. But you just want to set it up as a space that is going to really allow you to be optimal and thrive and help you work your best self. But one of the best things you can do in your office environment is just make sure that you're in command. That alone will shift everything. You will literally be able to turn things around if you can see the door and see what's going on in front of you.
Amazing. Those are great tips. I appreciate that. It's funny because I'm
going to share this with you.
Yeah.
This is a stick that I just found. See how cool it is?
Looks like a snake.
Right? That's what I thought that it was. So I was like, this is special. It's coming home with me.
Awesome. Well, it's interesting because, I'm, like I said at the beginning, I'm so green to this. As you're speaking, I'm creating connections in my own mind and then thinking about 100 different questions. So the first thing that it makes me think about is, Tony Robbins and NLP, where the first thing that they'll say to change your internal state, like how you're thinking and how you're feeling, is to change your physiology. And when you said, just have a space that's dedicated for this, the first thing that came into my mind when I was a kid was getting in trouble and having to stick my nose in the corner. And I was not stoked on that. So my interpretation is of the negative. And if you just have this little space, what that's also doing over time is it's like an NLP trigger. So the bad one is, let's say you have a little puppy dog and you love him and you're a kid, and then it gets run over by a big red truck. You're probably going to have the trigger of a red truck for a long time. You might even get mad at somebody 25 years later because they came out of a red truck and they said something, but you can't remember that correlation that had. So what you're doing is you're doing that in reverse. You're doing the positive effect of that, and how your body, the more you use it over repetition, is just going to create the neural connections, and then the obvious effect, right? The peace. So it'll be easier for you to get into peace the more that you use the environment that you created. So very interesting. And so I don't know which way I want to go with this, because I wrote down a lot of questions. If we stay on the thread or we kind of move a little bit, do you have any advice? I have friends, a lot of my friends are having kids. So I'm just curious if any of this like applies to kids or playrooms or things like that. So I'll just go with that one because I got a lot.
There's nothing wrong with kids, as far as Feng Shui goes. Obviously, kids tend to come with a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say that it's so much a Feng Shui thing, as that would be more my environmentalist activism side coming in, saying, they probably don't need as much stuff as they're being given. If something new comes in, something old needs to go out, But as far as Feng Shui goes, the things that you really want to pay attention to are just the rooms that the child is in. Pay attention to if they do have was number 3, the 5 disruptors. Number 3, we were talking about it. And, if they've got a closet that's in their room that's creating that knife edge, that's sharp shooting chi going at them. So, pay attention. Are your kids experiencing insomnia? Are they anxious? Are they being bullied at school? Are things showing up that are unexplainable and you can't put your finger on it, and you have tried everything? That is where the Feng Shui would come in, and you would want to pay attention to their bedroom, make sure that they're in command, make sure that they don't have a lot of sharp objects. Most kids don't, but they could have a closet that has that knife edge. So I always tell people to keep a journal and just write down the even if it seems completely insignificant, but things that keep happening again and again. If you're experiencing insomnia, anxiety, if the kid's struggling in school, or maybe he suddenly, starts having ADHD or really acting out or doing something that is abnormal, start writing those things down, because 9 times out of 10, those are the things that are in our environment that are a direct reflection that is showing up, and we're being affected by it. And that's why we behave that way.
All right. Interesting. Cool. I like it. Well, the first one that I like, because I have a nephew, and actually I'll just tilt my camera. So this is where I am. Like I said, the opposite of a feng shui room. There's crap everywhere. And he gets a lot of stuff. He gets like a lot of Easter stuff and things like that. And, you know, I'm not a parent. I don't know what the heck's going on, but I was like, I think he has too much stuff. Like every single day he's getting like a new toy. I was like, I don't know where the limit of spoiling is, but you know, he's just expecting gifts now. So I like you get something new and then you give it away, and you're also teaching them receiving and then letting go and gifting, which brings me to another article on your website that I thought was very fascinating, because it was just my birthday, and I spent some time with David Lombard Senepas, who's the native elder of the Mi'kmaq Nation. And we had very deep talks around life. His history is totally different than ours. His education, he was taught by, you know, over 600 elders. You know, this guy is really intense. And so we would go way out there, you know, as out there as you could possibly imagine. But then the practical application of what to do couldn't be any more simple, straightforward, and amazing. And one of the things he would constantly say is that 3 acts of kindness is the most important thing that you can do to hack your vibration. Well, I'm using the word hack. He definitely didn't use that word. Because when you're in the action of kindness or in the action of giving, it's a measurable frequency, apparently. And so what's happening is a lot of people, they have good intentions and they're writing books and they're doing these different things, and we want to be better. But what happens is we go about our daily life and we forget to maybe just get someone's name. He's like, that's an act of kindness. You know, if you're in a line and someone's in front of you or behind you, just get their name, or if somebody's serving you, you know, making sure that you're actually present. Because the way that my mind considers that, you go out and you get coffee and your food and whatever, we have a society that's a little bit separate. You know, it's like, oh, this is my job, but it's not, we're human to human in some sort of communal fashion where we're recognizing each other from a human standpoint and not just from the title standpoint, right? Server or whatever the case is. So you wrote an article that just talks about intentional gift giving. So I was wondering if you could just go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is actually a Feng Shui principle. We are taught in my school that one of the best ways that you can indeed raise your vibration and improve your karma is through acts of kindness. We are actually taught that you should do an act of kindness every day for 27 days to not only make it a habit, but to start drastically changing your overall vibration and your sense of well-being. So I have a concept that I call above and below the cross emotions. And so above the cross emotions are this idea of happiness, joy, love, enlightenment, all the goods in life. And the below the cross emotions are this idea of hatred, anger, frustration, disappointment, apathy. And 75% of our population lives in below the cross emotions. And so when I work with people, we rarely get these people anymore because we are operating at such a high vibe. But if I have, say, a woman that comes to me that's going through a divorce, or a man who is like a CEO and he's really stressed out and, you know, he's narcissistic and focusing on the wrong things, one of the things that I will have them do is the bodhisattva of compassion and kindness is 27 good deeds. And so, and it can be as little as opening a door for someone, buying a coffee for someone, giving a gift for someone. And so that's where this idea of gift giving comes in. When we're talking about gift giving, it has been so mutilated in our culture that, oh my God, it's so-and-so's birthday. I have to rush down to the mall and I've got to go buy some shitty thing that they don't really need, but I don't want to show up empty-handed because they're, you know, I'm going to feel guilty and they're going to, you know, judge me, and it's all that below the cross bullshit. So, or, you know, Christmas is the worst. Everybody's always rushing around to buy all these gifts. Versus this idea of the true idea and the true beautiful energy around what gift giving is that I really put forth divine energy into searching for the perfect thing. And it could be a delightful adventure that I'm out on a Sunday afternoon and I come across something and I'm like, oh my God, Matt loves this. And, this is his favorite author and it's a signed edition. So you have come top to mind and I know that it's something that you're going to adore. And so now there's an energy exchange that's occurring. Something that I know because we're friends that you're going to love. So now I'm elevated and I'm excited and I'm giddy because I have something that I know you are going to flip out over. So then when I give you that gift, you open it and you're freaking the freak out. Oh my gosh, I have this book. This is amazing. He's my favorite author. It's signed. You're blowing my mind. So now this energy exchange has occurred because I'm elevated and excited, plus I'm giving, which is our purpose and our true nature. And I've now given you something that's rocking your world. And so now we're in this high vibe area versus it's somebody's birthday. I've rushed out, bought some trinket that they don't need, and they unwrap it and they're like, oh, thanks. So the energy exchange is different because I went from rushing to go find something that you probably didn't really want. I wasted money. I wasted time. I wasted energy. I've given it to you. You're kind of like, meh, whatever. And so it's just like, wah, wah. Two totally different senses of energy. And that the way gift giving should be is that high vibe, elevated gift giving. And it should be spontaneous. So what, your birthday's in March. If I find this amazing book in June, that's when a gift should be given because that's when you and I are going to have that energy exchange. I feel obligated to right now because I haven't found something. That's how it should go down.
That is incredible. I totally agree with that. It is two different senses of energy. And I had a discussion with one of my good friends about Christmas, and he's got 2 kids now and the way that it's done, and he's just like, my family's upset with me because I'm kind of looking at this and I was like, not everybody just needs a gift to have a gift, and why are kids getting so many? And he's just like, am I being cheap? I was like, no, man, it's like, they probably have enough. I think it's just a little bit of a reframe of perspective of what gift giving is. And I totally agree with your perspective there. And I think it's a much more powerful, honest and sincere and powerful way to gift, a way to, connect with somebody. Like you said, that energy, they're going to be so excited when it's personal, and you literally do get super excited when you find that right thing. And so what happens is, from that perspective, then gift giving can happen anytime, anywhere. And, it doesn't need to be something expensive or whatever. It's just like, that's the time. Oh, I'm going to get it for them. That's really good. And you send it over and they're going to be super excited. So I appreciate that mindset. And you brought up a little bit, you talked about the principles of Feng Shui. Do you want to share like some of them? Because I think that the 27 days of giving and doing an act of kindness, that's really powerful stuff. And again, like if I'll reference David Lombard, who I just released that podcast, that's what he was said. He has a picture. He's spent time with the Dalai Lama. He was there on his request. He's spoken to thousands of people. And he's just like, when I speak, I get people, I say, hey, go out and see where your homeless are. Go do an act of kindness, invite them in. That's how simple these spiritual or energetic or whatever you want to say, conscious principles, whatever the term is, they're really great in mind. That's what he would keep referencing. They're really great in mind, but where are they in action? And so the 27 days of a kind act becomes a habit. Then that becomes your natural way of being. You're not trying to be Zen or think your way into enlightenment or whatever the verbiage you want to use is. It's just you are being that thing in action. And then that actually changes your physical vibration. So do you have any other favorite principles or things like that you want to share?
I would say that as far as humankind goes, that's probably one of the best seeds of advice that anybody could take. If they take anything away from this today, the top 5 disruptors, the above and below, that shit matters. What really matters at the end of the day is that we are all here, we're spiritual beings in human meat suits having a human experience. And so where we come from is like this higher consciousness of love and connection and acceptance. And then we come here and it's like egoic, narcissistic, self-serving, consumerism. It's like, you know, if you wanted to say that there was a hell, we're living in it. So I really think that the idea of how can you serve your fellow, you know, man or woman next to you? How can you serve humankind? How can you give back? We have so many gifts that we have. And I think that as technology becomes all encompassing and really starts to surround us and consume us, people are becoming more and more isolated, and they're not truly connecting with other human beings. So we just discovered, I got an email a couple weeks ago that here in Tennessee, the suicide rate has gone % in 1 year. And I'm not surprised by that.
Wait,
you know, we have
cut out for
friends,
1 sec. How many percent? It just cut out for a quick second.
4% in 1 year. So if you look at technology, you know, we're staying indoors. People don't get outside as much as they used to. And, you know, there's this thing that's pinging us that we have to have more followers. We have to get more likes. We have to get more friends. But they're not really friends. They're fake friends. So it was this idea in this article talking about how people are really down and out, but they don't have true friends that they can go to talk about their woes, because on social media, their life is freaking fabulous. And they don't want to admit that their life isn't as great as it is on social media. And so we're starting to see an increase in depression, anxiety, people not feeling like they're worthy or deserve, you know, what's going on in their life. It's not good enough, and they're striving for something and they don't even know what it is. So this idea of, at our core, we are built to love and give back, and everybody can attest to this idea of when you give something, no matter what it is, it makes you feel good. So that's a high vibe thing that you can do in your life. That's a high vibe thing that, as you called, is a life hack, helps you immediately change your vibration because it's in our core being. So if there's any one thing that you could do to start doing today, to start hitting that Zen space, look, these dudes in India and Tibet and these elders, they've got it figured out. They already know all this. This is what they've been teaching for centuries. It's not, you know, the science is starting to catch up to it, but we're so damn busy we're not paying attention. But you go out in the woods with an elder, you're going to learn more shit in one day than you will in a lifetime. They've got it all figured out. They know all this. So it's about this idea of be kind, you know, love one another, don't judge one another, and show up in a way and hold space for that person. So like you were talking about, you're at the Starbucks line, you're standing in line, say hello to someone. They might think you're weird, but why is that? It's because we're no longer really connecting with people. So start to change that paradigm and start to shift that, because that's what's going to elevate you. And when you go to that Zen spot, wherever that is in your house, when you feel really good and you've had a really good day, you're going to be able to sink into that right brain and hit that Zen space because you're elevated and you're feeling good. And it's hard to get there, but giving to other people and being kind is the fastest ways to get there.
That's amazing. There's a GIF out there of forget his name, but he's sitting there clapping. He's the guy, that main actor from Transformers. That's what my mind is at. Bravo, that was brilliant. I love all that. And I 100% agree. It's so simple, and the principles of the elders or the monks or the spiritual masters, it's the application of a simple idea. And the gap is we're not doing the application. We're looking for some sort of fantastic thing that brings our spirituality to us, or something outside of us, or it's like, no, it's like just doing those things. Like, what did Mother Teresa do? She gave every day. Now you don't have to do it in that way, but that was what she was doing. She's giving. Is like, this is the example of giving. This is what you do. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to take care of your family and have a job and things like that, but just have that in your mind as a way of being. That's who you are. And so you touched on really powerful things there, and I totally resonate and agree 100% with all of it. And so I guess my follow-up question would be, I was going to talk a little bit about, some principles for a work-life balance, or it could be that, or it could be your thoughts on really having self-love, self-acceptance, and peace, like real inner peace to have a fulfilling life. Because when I was talking to David, I could go really out there, I was like out there in outer space and all kinds of madness, and history and things like that. And then when I realized I could ask like anything, and I was trying to get deeper and deeper, is like, what do I want as this human experience? It's like, really, it's peace, like real fundamental wake up peace, just strong self-love, self-acceptance. And so from that space, I can go explore my reality. I can explore the planet. I can explore myself in a very honest way, and have a fulfilling life. So I was just wondering if you wanted to talk about either of those, some principles or some core concepts for you on how we might be able to achieve that a little bit more in our lives.
Well, I think that, what you touched on, this idea, like every time somebody's asked, like, what is it that you really want? What do they always say? I want to be happy, but I think the problem is that people don't slow down enough to really sit in that space and say, okay, but what is it that really makes me happy? What is it that I really want? It's one thing to say, oh, I want to find peace and I want to find happiness, but that definition of what that looks like is going to be different for everybody. For you or I, it might be, for me, it would be going out in the woods with an elder for a week and, doing a vision quest. I mean, I would be all over that. Some of my most surreal experiences happen during a vision quest. That ain't for everybody. So I think that, one of the concepts of this human experience is that we have an ego. That's not something that we have on the other side. When we're a divine spirit and, we don't have these meat suits on us, we don't have this ego thing that is really controlling the left brain and structuring things and making everything logical and going, oh, you shouldn't do that. And there's this fear and, oh, remember the last time you did that. And so it's like we have this inner chatter, and that is what screws up our peace. That's what screws up our happiness, is that we don't trust our inner wisdom. Everything that you need to find that peace or that happiness is within you. It's there. The elders know this. They've been professing this, and we don't trust. As human beings, we really click into that left brain that's all about the future and the past. And it's like, well, the last time I did that, this happened. So this is what's going to result from that. And so then fear steps in, and we all live over here. And then there's this whole idea of we don't deserve it. We're not worthy of it. Who the hell am I? And it's like, if you can just shut down that mental chatter and get to this place of, what is it that I really want? How do I really connect to that inner wisdom? One of the best things that I can do is before I go into a Feng Shui consultation, my whole staff knows this. I literally shut down and I go out into the woods for an hour. I hug trees. I'm placing my hands in the dirt. I'm meditating. I'm playing in the water. Like I am molesting Mother Earth because I want to get as close to the divine as I possibly can so that I can connect to my true being. But who does that, right? Nobody does that. Most of us wake up in the morning, get in our car, go to the office, leave the office, get in our car, and go right back home. Rarely do people get outside. So in order for you to be able to tap into this inner wisdom and find what peace, contentment, happiness looks like, have to go within. Those external things that you're doing are never going to make you happy. No matter how much shit you buy, no matter how fancy your house is, your car is, the shoes, the clothes, it doesn't matter. Those will never fulfill you. But if you can go into that little corner of that room that has been deemed your portal for your Zen state everything to make you happy and to give you the life that you want lives in that space. That is where you will find all the answers, and that's where you will find your Zen state.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love how you shared that you go outside and you play in the
I molest.
Oh shoot, I was in mute. Could you hear me? I was saying I
Yeah.
love. Oh, okay. Yeah, I love all that. I think it's so funny. I've never heard that sentence before, and it's a very spectacular sentence. It's the only time I think that you could use that word and it be okay in a sentence. Uh, and I do know a few people who do that, and it's very rare, and they are considered odd people. And what it really brings to mind for me when we're talking about social media and the rise of depression and suicide and very serious things that are happening is, yes, this separation of feeling isolated, not feeling communal, not feeling connected. And another way is that I think it's the difference between an artificial reality and a natural reality. And so a natural and real. So when I am with somebody, like, it's great to have a podcast with somebody, I can connect with them. I can see your face. I can get a read on who you are by what you say and the way you carry yourself and all the subconscious things that go about it. And there's a massive upgrade when you're in physical reality together. And, that's why conferences and festivals and things like that, getting in someone's actual space is as real as it gets. You can get all the information, you can get all the subtleties. And so going out into nature is such a beautiful way of being. It puts you into a natural state, and if you take all of it away, take all the houses, all the fancy cars, all the stuff, and what you're actually doing is you're on a rock floating through space with other things that are on this thing, and you get really grounded. And I think that that's where people are really getting lost, because they have no grounding. Without grounding or connection with themselves, you can't really aim, and you're a little bit lost, and you want to find your way, but everything's artificial. You can't grasp onto anything real. So the fact that you go out and you go for a walk in the woods, or you play in the water, or you just do something that's real and natural, you're connecting to, your self and what you are as this, I sometimes say just like a sophisticated monkey, because we're supposed to be playing, we're supposed to be jumping around and climbing trees and going in the dirt and exploring, but it became serious. Somewhere along the line, it became serious, and we had to go get pieces of paper to survive, to get food coupons. And then everything from that, it's unfortunately what we live in, but we got to kind of reverse that trend. So do that so you can eat, but also remember your natural connection with who you are. So there's a lot of really powerful principles in there. And so I guess I would ask you to go a little bit deeper on like the work-life balance, because I think that's where we're going with it. We have two realities. You're playing in the water and you're going out. We have these jobs that we got to do. We got to keep promises and perform tasks and keep the lights on and things like that. What do you offer for people who might be in a little bit more of a high stress environment? They're a little bit more on the, I got to get this paper because if I don't, bad things are going to happen, which might be very real. How to create that balance for themselves.
Yeah, and I would say that crisis, right? Like we're all workaholics. I would arguably say that there's probably not a single person who's watching or listening to this that isn't in that situation. We can't all be hippies going out and hugging trees and like everything's going to be just hunky-dory. It just doesn't work that way. But the thing is that we tend to spend 90% in our left brain and only 10% in our right brain. And so Emily Fletcher from Ziva Meditation talks about this idea of your basically you've got a barbell in your left hand and you're just sitting there cranking the hell out of it. And your muscle is growing and growing and your right arm over here is just hanging here. And it's like, well, what about me? And your right brain is where intuition, creativity, flow, this idea of playfulness and wonderment, that's where that comes from. And so we've been bred to believe that the only way that we can survive is to stay in this left brain. We have to hustle. We have to be productive. We have to be doing and not being. And I don't know that there's truly this concept of work-life balance. I think that it's kind of a flow in between, because there's going to be times in your work state where you're going to have to hustle and you're going to have to, work those long hours. But what happens is that, and we have to be very conscious of it. All of us in my office, we are very conscious about, okay, we are working on a project. We're extremely excited on it. And when we get in that state, we tend to just work. And we have to be able to push ourselves away from it and take a moment to go outside and have some playful moments. You have to make a conscious effort. Otherwise, you get completely wrapped up in that left brain do, and effort to make shit happen. And then you forget about this other side. And the problem is that that's where the anxiety lives. That's where the angst and the craziness and the chaos. And what happens is our stress level starts to increase, and then we become stupid. A lot of people think that, stress is the driving force for a productive campaign, or, the good that's going to come out of whatever you're working on. But stress has actually been proven to alter our brain state, and we make stupid decisions. The way that you fix that is to bring in the right brain and soften it and bring in the creative flow and tap into the divine. And whether that's going out in the woods or going into your meditation space or just taking 5 minutes, I do this all the time. I'll make a cup of coffee and I will go sit outside. All of my trees are named. And so my one out front, his name is Arthur. Everybody knows Arthur. I'll yell up to the staff and I'll say, I'm going outside for 15 minutes to go have a chat with Arthur. I have to break myself away, but you have to make a conscious effort to do that, because it's so easy to fall into this. I have to get it done. I have to get it done. I have deadlines. I've got to do this and I've got to take care of this. And there's never enough time. So the only way that work-life balance occurs and can actually happen is if you make a conscious effort. And so many of us fall trapped to this idea of, well, I'm just going to stay in the left brain because that's where I get everything done. But then you hit burnout, and then you're unhappy, and then you're stressed out. Your health starts taking a toll. Your family starts taking a toll, and nobody wants to be there. So in order to get that balance, will it ever be 50-50? Probably not. But you have to make the conscious effort to figure out what that play side or what that create side looks like for you. It could be going to the movies, going out into the woods. It could be coloring. It could be going to your Zen spot. It could be going for a hike. It could be that, you go someplace with a friend, whatever it looks like for you. But you have to make sure that you take time to do those things, because when you allow your mind to rest, that's when that divine inspiration comes in and you come in with the big ideas. And that's the sweet spot. We forget that when we allow our brains to come down and to actually take a moment, that's when all the uploads start coming in. And that's the place that you want to be. You can't achieve that when you're in that left brain. But in order to achieve work-life balance, you have to work at it.
Another round of applause. That was amazing. I totally agree. And I really like it's simple and practical. It's not, let's say, I like the hippie version, we can't all just hug a tree. Now I am as most that trying to do that as anyone else that I know. And it is challenging just to do that and live that way. But it's really practical, and you do have to make a choice. And what it kind of reminds me of is Wayne Dyer would talk about, we're human beings, not human doings. And we get stuck in that cycle. That 90% is such a really great analogy, because we're stuck in this mechanical way of being. It's just go, 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 go. And we've not balanced it with the being, with the creative side. And we, as electromagnetic beings, we emit a signal, we send a signal out, and we also receive signals from everything around us: space, nature, plants, people, all that kind of stuff. And we forgot how to listen. And so when you're hanging out with Arthur is by far more wise than probably any human on this planet. He's standing in the same spot, hanging out, just telling you to relax. What are you doing? And so if we can make that conscious effort to start to balance it out, then we go more into the receiving mode. We start to access, right? It's not all about putting out. It's like, and what is the point of just putting out to put out? What are you putting out?
Exactly.
But when you receive, you're starting to receive what nature might need, what others might need, because you're listening, you're picking up all this subtle information from all the life around you. And when you stop and settle, that idea will drop in and say, hey, this is something that you can offer to your community that you're in, to your surroundings, to this space that's going to light you up, and it's going to contribute to all these other things because we've picked up this information. Now you've stopped thinking, and now or got out of your way, and now we can give you can receive. Now as the same emitter, you can now receive some information that you can then take action on. So really practical and beautiful answer that I totally agree with.
Well, and I want to mention is that when you get caught up in the doing, pushing, you miss out on a lot of things, and you miss a lot of the divine communication that you receive. So, for example, the other night I went out and I was walking out in the woods, and it was pretty late. It was like 8:00 at night, and I heard owls. And we've never had owls in our neighborhood ever. So I start walking towards where I think the sound is, and lo and behold, my neighbor's roof, I look up and there's the owl. Like, had I not really been tuned in and tapped in, I could have missed that. I could have, to me, I stopped, I sat down on the curb, I really enjoyed him, I talked with him, I had a conversation with him. Like, I understood what a gift that was from nature to honor me with this owl's presence. And there was actually not one, there was 3. And so we've lived here for 5 years and I've never seen an owl. Well, if you're so caught up in the doing, you miss these beautiful moments that happened around you that are true gifts from the universe. But because you're so caught up in your bullshit that you think is important, you miss the beauty, you miss the magic.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's funny because I can see, not my audience probably, but other audiences like, oh, it's just an owl, who cares? You got to go back inside and you got to, do something ridiculous. That's so important. And from this perspective, I would be that same way. I'd be like, oh my God, it's 3 friggin' owls. Yes. And I would sit and I would be there. And like, that is the magic. And I had a podcast yesterday, but this thought, I don't know, I think I mentioned it yesterday. And I just wrote this down, but I was doing a meditation that David taught me, and it's just put a candle in the room and just watch it for 20 minutes and let the images come from the side. And what will happen is this is a technique to break the veil, to kind of see spirit guides. And it's not to look directly at them. It's just kind of experience this a little bit of a wavy state between physical and spiritual. So I sit down, and as soon as I put the candle down, I haven't lit it yet. I said, I want to communicate with spirit. I want spirit to be with me here. And I want it to be obvious. I light the candle. And 10 seconds later, not even, an ant walks over to the light and starts to crawl up the thing. And I was like, wait. And instantly I was like, this isn't what I mean for spirit. Like, this isn't the thing. So I just meditated with it and I disregarded the ant. And the ant started to do circles. And then it started to circle around the bottom of the candle over and over and over and over again. And then it would climb up the candle and it would sit there. And then it would go down and do over and over and over and over again. And I'm thinking as like, a few times, like, are ants attracted to light? Like, this is just a natural thing that an animal or an insect will do. And then I'm journaling about the experience. And then I realize as it's kind of sinking in, the thing did like so many circles. I ask spirit to come and it comes and it does it in this way. And I realize, and I have this epiphany that, like a deepening understanding that spirit communicates with you in subtle ways. Yes. I'm expecting an archangel to come down with like full armor and golden glory. And, this is how you communicate with spirit. They come in some sort of orb and boom, and you go to this magical castle. It's like, no, dummy, it's very subtle. And that's the art of being here. You need to learn how to listen. You need to know how to speak the language. And so when an owl comes, you recognize that as special. When an ant comes, I can get my head out of my ass and realize that that's special. I just asked for it, and that's how it communicates in a very subtle way. And it's just for you to make that link and that connection. And then you start reading this very subtle language that's very real and always speaking to you. each and every moment, always speaking to you. I thought about this comic of, somebody at home and asking spirit for help, and they get in their car, and then, they've got a bald eagle or something right here, and then the eagle's like, hey, just trying to get their attention. They go to work and they're driving in traffic, and dolphins are going off the sea line or whatever. Just all this amazing stuff is happening, but they're so stuck in this box that they can't see anything else other than that stress response pattern, and keep your head down, essentially go to work, get in your box, go do your task, and not pay attention. But if you breathe and you just become a little bit more aware and a little bit more at peace, you start to notice these signs and these signals. That was my rant.
Yeah. Spirit never communicates to us in loud, gregarious roars. They never do. It's always very subtle. It's very fleeting. And if you are not present and truly mindful, you're going to miss it. But here's the cool thing. The more that you recognize it and honor it and create special space for it, the more it will occur. So treat it as such, honor it, be respectful of it, and ask for more. Because and pay attention to it and thank them for that. It's like they'll give you little crumbs and they're like, oh, she likes it. Let's give. So, but you got to slow down in order to see it.
Yeah, 100%. And that was something that David talked about too, is like when you recognize it and you write it down, they know you're paying attention. Spirit is realizing you're paying attention, so they can give you more. And you can just see it as a capacitor. We're in an electrical universe, and we send a signal, we receive a signal. So when it sends us information and signs, we recognize it, then we open up for more. We open up for more. We open up for more, because you can't get too much at once. It'll freak you out. It's just like, okay.
Not me. I'm always like, bring it on.
Yeah, perfect. This has been really fantastic. I didn't know it was going to go this way. And I trusted that it was going to be awesome. And it was. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that beautiful and grounded wisdom. Before we go, I'm just curious if there's anything that we didn't touch on, if there's a question that you wish that I would have asked, or anything that you want to rant on a little bit before we go, and make sure that people, and you can feel free to elaborate as much as you want and open up new rabbit holes, and just anything you want to leave the listeners with and how they can get a hold of you.
I think that the nugget of information that I would hope that everybody would take from this is just really slowing down and figuring out how they can serve. We need to take greater care of humanity. We need to be a lot less egoic about things, non-judgmental, kind. We need to start being a lot more compassionate and less selfish. And so, if you walk away with anything, I would definitely encourage you to do the 27 things. Professor Lin always talked about how it's not your time or your effort that matters, it's your karma that matters. And so when you leave this planet, you leave with nothing. All that shit that you've accumulated, you leave with none of it. The one thing that you leave with is your wisdom and your good deeds. So, if you've been a really shitty person, that's going to stack up against you. So how can you serve? How can you be a better human? How can you really take your knowledge and who you are as a being and give back and show true kindness? And, I think the other thing is that we are harming our planet at an alarming rate, and people need to get their heads out of their asses. This place that we live is beautiful, and we are treating it as if there's another one to go to, and there's not. So, if you can take one practice every day, or start doing one thing every day, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you change over to paper bags, or maybe you get canvas shoppers, or I got rid of my car. That was a loud, gregarious roar on my part, but what can you do to start saving our planet? Because our kids right now are not going to have a place to be. This is no longer a matter of science fiction. And, everybody wanted to say that Al Gore was, it was a political movement, and it wasn't. I think that we need to really change our way of thinking. Consumerism does not matter. How we treat each other does, and how we treat our planet matters. Those are the things that I want people to take away from this. And I'm hoping that they are inspired and motivated to do one act of change that will make a big impact. Oh, and I should say, if they want to find more information, I guess that's important, right?
Yeah, no, that was such a beautiful closing statement. Thank you so much. I would have reminded you that you got to the important bits. You
Oh
got to
God.
that.
Well, I never, I'm always more about the change. We need to change. And I forgot about, the marketing bullshit. If you'd like to learn more, I have a great podcast, Home Energy Design. I talk a lot about this. I talk a lot about karma, Feng Shui, how to be a better human, how to take care of our planet, things that you can do to, really focus on the things that matter and giving back. YouTube channel has a lot of similar dialogue and change and that sort of thing. Lots of really great information. And of course, what Matt was talking about is my website. I have over 9 years worth of blog articles on there. And for a long time, I wrote 3 times a week on there. So there's a lot of information on the blog as far as how to be an environmentalist, how to live zero waste free lifestyle, easy feng shui tips and how you can change your environment, and just looking at the energy that's around us and how to interpret things and connection to the divine. But all of that, I'm all over social media too.
Amazing. Appreciate that. Well, those are really epic closing statements. And I remember the GIF that I was thinking about, or GIF. I don't know. People will tell you it's different things. But it's Shia LaBeouf just sitting there clapping like this, and he's like super intense in a suit. But yeah, you did that 3 times. Really amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and your work and, inspiring that change in people and, doing it every single day. I can imagine the amount of work and the energy you put out over 3 years, and it takes a while. It's not an overnight thing, and it's kind of a commitment to a path. And so I just appreciate you walking it and sharing that with others.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for watching, guys. Check in the next one. Peace.